In this video, we'll be taking a look at 5 NHL games happening on April 12th, 2026, and providing you with free team picks and total picks for each one of those games, so 10 picks in total. Welcome back to Cash Out Sports. Let's dive right into it. Oh, and don't forget to subscribe and to click the bell icon to get notified as soon as these videos get released so that you have more time to plan out your bets as we provide these videos on a daily basis. I can guarantee that you'll have all the important information that you'll need on these 5 NHL games after fully watching this video. One more thing before we start, if you would like to gain access to our best exclusive sports picks to take your journey to the next level, then check out our Patreon in the link down below, where we offer our best single picks, parlay picks, and much more. Now let's get started. Pittsburgh Penguins versus Washington Capitals. There's something special about a rivalry game where both teams show up with completely different heartbeats. One side has already popped the champagne, clinched their spot, and is coasting into the postseason with their feet up. The other side is clawing at the walls, fighting for every last breath of their season, knowing that a single loss could end everything. That's exactly what we've got here today with the Pittsburgh Penguins traveling into Washington to face the Capitals at Capital One Arena. Pittsburgh sits comfortably at 41-23-16 on the year, locked into the second seed in the Metropolitan Division after clinching a playoff berth for the first time since 2022. They've got nothing to gain, nothing to lose, and honestly, they've been treating these final games like a preseason tune-up. Yesterday, head coach Dan Muse sat Sidney Crosby, Evgeny Malkin, Chris Letang, Brian Rust, Erik Karlsson, and several others, listing them all as day-to-day with various injuries. The Penguins called up AHL bodies on emergency recall just to fill out a lineup card. And guess what happened? Washington steamrolled them 6-3, outshooting Pittsburgh 31-12. That's not a typo. 31-12 in shots on goal. The Capitals didn't just win, they dominated a gutted Penguins roster from puck drop to the final horn. Now here's where it gets interesting for today's rematch. Pittsburgh has already locked up their playoff position and can't move up any further in the standings, so there's zero incentive for Muse to throw his stars back into the fire on the second half of a back-to-back. Even Ovechkin himself said after yesterday's game that Crosby would probably play today, but let's be honest, Crosby has been nursing a knee issue since suffering a grade 2 MCL tear at the Milan Cortina Olympics back in February. Malkin has missed nearly 20 games this season with shoulder and hand problems. Why on earth would Pittsburgh risk their playoff core in a meaningless regular season finale on the road? Washington, on the other hand, is playing with a fire under them that money can't buy. The Capitals sit at 41-30-9, clinging to 91 standings points and trailing the Philadelphia Flyers by just a single point for the third and final playoff spot in the Metro Division. They were officially eliminated from the wild card race yesterday, so this is their one and only path. Win out and pray for help. Lose and start planning for the offseason. This is Fan Appreciation Day at Capital One Arena, and it could very well be Alex Ovechkin's final home game in a Capitals uniform if he decides to hang them up this summer. The 40-year-old legend, the NAHL's all-time goal-scoring king with over 920 career regular season goals, has said he won't make his retirement decision until after the season. Ovechkin scored yesterday, Tom Wilson potted his 30th goal of the year, Ryan Leonard buried 2 goals, and 19-year-old Ilya Protas, in just his second career NHL game, racked up 3 points and looked like he'd been in the league for years. The kid is Alexei Protas's younger brother, and that family clearly has hockey in its DNA. Washington's home record of 24-11 is elite, and in the second game of home and home situations, the Capitals have gone a ridiculous 36-16 in their last 52. You combine a roster fighting for survival, a potential farewell for a living legend, a crowd that's going to be electric, and an opponent that has every reason in the world to take the night off, and you get a recipe that leans very heavily in one direction. The Capitals showed yesterday that they have the offensive depth to bury teams right now, even without a fully healthy blue line after Rasmus Sandin left yesterday's game with a leg injury. Spencer Carberry's squad knows what's at stake, and they've won 3 of their last 4 games heading into today. Pittsburgh might trot out a lineup that looks more like a Wilkes-Barre Scranton squad than an NHL playoff team. As our first pick for this matchup, the Washington Capitals money line is our full game side pick. Let's talk about the number everyone's staring at on the board for this one. The trends here are screaming, and if you've got ears, you'll hear them. Washington has gone under in 4 straight Sunday games. That's not a fluke, that's a pattern. Pittsburgh's Sunday record is even more lopsided, with the under cashing in 9 of their last 13 Sunday contests. When Pittsburgh has been listed as a favorite recently, the under has hit in 4 of their last 5. And when Washington has been favored, the under is a stunning 6-0 to 1 in their last 7. These numbers don't lie, and they paint a crystal clear picture. Here's why the trends actually make sense in context, though, because that matters more than just blindly following numbers on a spreadsheet. This is the second game of a back-to-back for both teams. They played a physically demanding game yesterday where the combined shot total was 43 and there were 38 hits between the two clubs. Legs are going to be heavy. Shifts are going to be shorter. The pace of play naturally slows down in these situations, and that's not speculation. That's just how hockey works when guys are playing on tired legs with less than 24 hours of recovery. If Pittsburgh continues to ice a watered-down lineup full of call-ups and depth players, their ability to generate consistent offensive pressure is significantly limited. Yesterday, they managed just 12 shots on goal against Washington. 12. That's a number you'd expect from a bad AHL team, not a club heading into the Stanley Cup playoffs. Even if Muse decides to bring back a couple of names like Rickard Rakell or Anthony Mantha, you're still looking at a roster that's missing its engine. Without Crosby driving the play, without Malkin creating in the offensive zone, the Penguins' attack loses its identity. On the Washington side, Logan Thompson has been solid in net and posted a shutout earlier this week against Toronto, stopping all 22 shots he faced. The Capitals, despite their defensive struggles over the past few weeks, tend to tighten things up considerably when they're playing with that do-or-die desperation at home. There's a difference between regular season hockey and our season is on the line hockey, and that mentality usually translates to a more conservative, structured approach. Teams fighting for their playoff lives don't typically play wide open, run-and-gun hockey. They protect leads, they collapse in the defensive zone, they block shots, and they play smart. Add in the fatigue factor of a back-to-back, the reduced firepower from Pittsburgh's depleted lineup, and the motivational dynamics of a team protecting every single goal like it's their last, and you've got a game that profiles much lower scoring than the casual bettor might expect. Yesterday's 6-3 result might trick people into thinking another fireworks show is coming, but that game was an anomaly driven by Pittsburgh's skeleton crew getting overwhelmed. Today, expect a more measured, tighter affair. As our second pick for this matchup, under the projected total is our full game total pick. Montreal Canadiens versus New York Islanders. There's something about a team with its back pinned completely against the wall that changes the energy of a hockey game. And tonight, this Islanders squad is not just fighting for pride or home ice or bragging rights. They're fighting to keep their entire season alive. New York sits at 43-32, clinging to the fringe of the Eastern Conference playoff picture, and every single game from here on out is essentially a do-or-die situation. Meanwhile, Montreal rolls into UBS Arena at 47-23, already locked into a playoff spot, sitting comfortably second in the Atlantic Division. The Canadiens have nothing tangible to play for tonight, and that matters more than people realize. Honestly, when you look at motivation alone, it's night and day. Now here's where things get really interesting. The Islanders just fired Patrick Roy and brought in Peter DeBoer behind the bench, a move that sent shockwaves through the league with just a handful of games left in the regular season. That's a bold, desperate, franchise-defining decision, and it tells you everything about how seriously this organization is taking this final stretch. DeBoer is a coach who's taken 2 different franchises to the Stanley Cup final. He's won everywhere he's been, and his track record speaks volumes about his ability to walk into a locker room and immediately make an impact. His very first game behind the Islanders bench, the team came out and beat Toronto 5-3 right here at UBS Arena. Yes, they dropped yesterday's game to Ottawa 0-3, but that was the second half of the new coach adjustment, and anyone who's followed hockey long enough knows these things don't happen overnight. The fact remains, DeBoer was specifically hired because this team needed to tighten its defensive structure and better support their goaltender, and that's exactly the kind of mentality you want in a must-win game. Speaking of that goaltender, Ilya Sorokin has been absolutely stellar this year with a .914 save percentage, and that number is not a fluke. Sorokin has been the backbone of this franchise all season long, and when games get tight, when the stakes get heavy, he's the kind of netminder who rises to the occasion. On the other side, Montreal's goaltending has been a bit of a carousel. Jacob Fowler, the 21-year-old rookie, has done admirably for his age with a .903 save percentage, but there's a clear gap between what Sorokin brings and what Fowler is able to provide in a high-pressure road game on the second night of a back-to-back. And let's not gloss over that, because both of these teams played yesterday. Montreal just got blown out by Columbus 2-5 at home, and now they have to turn around and travel to Long Island for a matinee that means everything to the home team and very little to them. The Canadiens are loaded with talent, there's no denying that. Nick Suzuki is having a monster season with 91 points, Cole Caulfield has racked up 46 goals, and Ivan Demidov has been spectacular as a rookie with 61 points in 79 games. Noah Dobson, the former Islander who was traded to Montreal last summer, anchors the blue line alongside Lane Hutson. This is a deep, dangerous team on paper. But you know what happens sometimes with deep, dangerous teams that have already clinched their spot. They let their foot off the gas. They rest key guys, they manage minutes, they play with a little less urgency. That's human nature, and it applies to hockey players just as much as it applies to anyone else. Meanwhile, guys like Matthew Barzal, Bo Horvat, and Anders Lee are skating for their playoff lives tonight. Matthew Schaefer, the #1 overall pick from the 2025 draft, who's been nothing short of a revelation as a rookie defenseman, has given this franchise a jolt of energy and hope that hasn't existed on Long Island in years. Kyle Palmieri, Adam Pelech, Ryan Pulock, this is a group that's played meaningful hockey together, and they're not ready to let their season end without a fight. Home ice matters here. The crowd at UBS Arena is going to be electric, and when you combine that atmosphere with a desperate team under a new coach facing a road opponent on a back-to-back with nothing to play for, the edges start to tilt. As our first pick for this matchup, the New York Islanders money line is our full game side pick. The last time these two teams met, Montreal lit up the Islanders 7-3 at the Bell Center on March 21st, and that scoreline might make you think fireworks are in store tonight. But here's the thing, that game happened under Patrick Roy's watch, before the coaching change, and before this franchise made a conscious decision to prioritize defensive structure above all else. Peter DeBoer's entire reputation is built on tightening up teams defensively, and the Islanders' front office literally cited their need to better protect Sorokin as the reason for making this coaching switch in the first place. That changes the equation tonight in a big way. When you look at what New York has done throughout the season as a whole, this is a team that allows just 2.8 goals per game. That's a legitimate, verifiable defensive identity that doesn't just vanish because of one coaching change. On the flip side, the Islanders also only generate about 2.9 goals per game on offense, which means this is a team built to play in low-scoring, tightly contested games where every shift and every save matters. And when Sorokin is between the pipes with a .914 save percentage, the ceiling for opposing offenses gets squeezed. Now factor in the fatigue element. Both teams played yesterday, both teams are running on fumes to some extent, and historically, back-to-back situations suppress scoring across the board. Tired legs mean slower puck movement, less explosive transition play, fewer odd-man rushes, and a heavier reliance on structure and positioning over raw skill and creativity. Montreal scored just 2 goals yesterday and got outclassed by Columbus, which is not exactly a powerhouse. The Canadiens' legs are going to be heavy tonight, and when your legs are heavy on the road, your playmakers can't create the way they want to. Sorokin is going to see the puck well tonight, he's going to make saves he shouldn't, and he's going to be the reason this game stays tight. On the other end, whether it's Fowler or Dobes between the pipes for Montreal, neither goaltender has the kind of track record that suggests they're going to be lights out on the road on zero rest. DeBoer's system is going to emphasize limiting grade A chances, clogging up the neutral zone, and making life miserable for Montreal's skilled forwards. Games like this, where both teams are fatigued, where the home team is desperate and defensive-minded, and where the goaltending favors one side, these are the games that stay low on the scoreboard. The pace of play will be slower, the structure will be tighter, and neither team is likely to put up a crooked number on the board. As our second pick for this matchup, under the projected total is our full game total pick. Boston Bruins versus Columbus Blue Jackets. There's something about the way this matchup sets up that feels like a trap game for Columbus, and honestly, it's hiding in plain sight. The Blue Jackets are coming into this one off a back-to-back, having played in Montreal just last night, a game where they won 5-2 but still had to burn a ton of energy doing it. Flying home, getting into Columbus late, and then having to turn right back around and play again the very next evening, that wears on you in ways that don't always show up in the first period but absolutely show up in the third. The Bruins, on the other hand, carry a different kind of edge right now. Yeah, Boston's lost 5 straight, falling to Florida, Tampa Bay twice, Philadelphia, and Carolina. But here's the thing, sometimes a skid like that is exactly what a team needs to wake up and play angry. And these aren't soft losses either. They've been razor-thin one-goal defeats in most of them, the kind of games where the bounces just haven't gone their way. Marco Sturm's group is sitting at 43-27-10 on the season, clinging to a wild card spot with playoff odds hovering around 99%, but they haven't technically punched their ticket yet. That matters. A team that knows one win locks it up plays with a completely different heartbeat than a team just playing for seeding. You look at the season series and it tells you everything you need to know about this particular matchup. Boston has won both meetings this year, 4-2 back on February 26th, and then 4-3 in Columbus on March 29th. That second one is especially telling because the Bruins went into Nationwide Arena and took care of business on the road. And now they're walking back into that same building with unfinished business. Jeremy Swayman should be rested and ready to go here. He didn't start yesterday's game against Tampa Bay, meaning he's had a day to recharge. And when Swayman is fresh, he's been one of the best goaltenders in the entire league this season, ranking second among all NHL goalies in goals saved above expected. Columbus, on the other hand, likely has to roll with a backup after Jet Greaves got the start last night in Montreal. That's a significant goaltending disparity on paper, and it matters even more in a game where legs could be heavy. The Blue Jackets also can't seem to find consistency. They went on a brutal 6-game losing streak not long ago, got absolutely dismantled 5-0 by Buffalo on April 9th, and their overall body of work at 40-28-12 puts them on the outside of the playoff picture looking in, sitting 6th in the Metropolitan Division. Charlie Coyle, who was traded from Boston to Columbus over the summer, knows these Bruins inside and out, but familiarity cuts both ways, because Swayman knows Coyle's tendencies just as well. Zach Werenski is having a monster season from the blue line with over 80 points, and Kirill Marchenko has been their top goal-scoring threat. But Boston's defensive structure under Sturm, anchored by Charlie McAvoy fresh off winning Olympic gold with Team USA, has a way of tightening things up in games that matter. Sometimes the desperate team isn't the one fighting for their lives, it's the one that's been losing and knows it can't afford to lose again. As our first pick for this matchup, the Boston Bruins money line is our full-game side pick. Now, when you start breaking down whether the puck is going to find the back of the net a bunch of times here, you have to consider the circumstances surrounding both teams and what that does to pace and scoring. Columbus is playing on the second night of a back-to-back. That's not just a throwaway detail you can brush past. It's one of the most reliable factors in hockey when it comes to suppressing offense. Tired legs lead to slower transitions, lazier breakouts, and less urgency on the forecheck, all of which contribute to lower event hockey. The Blue Jackets have been very kind to the under on Sundays this season, with the under cashing at a 6-1-1 clip in their last 8 Sunday games. That's a staggering trend. When Columbus has been installed as the favorite, the under is also 4-1 in their last 5 in that spot. You couple those trends with the fact that Boston has scored just 1 goal in 3 of their last 5 outings, and the picture starts to paint itself. The Bruins haven't been lighting the lamp, and honestly, that's fine for this particular angle because it tells you the offense is in a bit of a lull. The head-to-head results this season reinforce the pattern, too. The 2 previous meetings produced final scores of 4-2 and 4-3, both tight, both controlled, both decided by a goal or 2 rather than some wild back-and-forth track meet. If Swayman is between the pipes for Boston, his shot-stopping ability alone puts a ceiling on the total. He's faced one of the highest volumes of high-danger chances in the entire league this season and continues to come up with massive saves at critical moments. On the Columbus side, whoever gets the net is going to be operating behind a group of skaters who just played a full 60 minutes last night. That doesn't exactly scream offensive fireworks. Rick Bowness, who took over behind the Columbus Blue Jackets bench back in January, tends to lean toward a structured, defensively responsible style, and Boston under Storm has shown that same kind of identity, especially on the road where the Bruins have been surprisingly stingy. Two teams built like this, playing under these circumstances, on the second night of a back-to-back for one of them, with a goalie of Swayman's caliber likely getting the start on the other side. That's a recipe for a tight, grinded-out hockey game. As our second pick for this matchup, under the projected total is our full game total pick. Ottawa Senators versus New Jersey Devils. There's a fascinating dynamic at play tonight when the Ottawa Senators travel to the Prudential Center to take on the New Jersey Devils, and honestly, it's one of those matchups where the context surrounding the game might matter more than anything that happens between the whistles. You've got two teams heading in completely opposite directions right now, and that's not just some lazy narrative. It's backed up by everything we've seen over the last couple of weeks. Ottawa sits at roughly 43-27-10 on the season, having already clinched a wild card spot in the Eastern Conference, and they're rolling into Newark on a 4-game winning streak that has been nothing short of dominant. We're talking about a stretch where they demolished the Carolina Hurricanes 6-3, hammered the Tampa Bay Lightning 6-2, dismantled the Florida Panthers 5-1, and then went on the road yesterday and shut out the New York Islanders 3-0. That's 20 goals scored in 4 games, and 3 of those wins came against teams that have already punched their ticket to the postseason. This isn't a team beating up on bottom feeders. This is a squad that's peaking at exactly the right time. New Jersey sits at 41-36-3 and has been officially eliminated from the playoff race. Let that sink in for a second. They're done. The lights are off, the season is winding down, and the organization has already started making end-of-year decisions that tell you everything you need to know about where their heads are at. They shut down their #1 goaltender Jacob Markstrom for the remainder of the season to rest and rehab. They shut down their best defenseman Luke Hughes so he can undergo shoulder surgery and get a head start on recovery. Arseny Gritsyuk, one of their more exciting young wingers, has also been shut down for the year. Stefan Noesian is out with a knee injury. Brett Pesce has been on long-term injured reserve. And on top of all that, the Devils parted ways with general manager Tom Fitzgerald earlier this week. That's a franchise that's cleaning house and looking toward the off-season already, not one that's gearing up for a meaningful hockey game tonight. Ottawa can't afford to take a single shift off. Every point matters when you're trying to lock down playoff seeding, and head coach Travis Green has his group playing with a sense of urgency that you can feel through the television screen. The return of Thomas Chabot just 3 days ago was like a shot of adrenaline for this blue line. Here's the thing, the man broke his arm on March 23rd, had surgery 3 days later, was supposed to be out 4 to 8 weeks, and came back in 17 days. 17 days after breaking his arm. He hopped into the lineup against the Panthers, and the Senators promptly won 5-1. Pair that with Jake Sanderson's return on April 4th from his own upper body injury, and suddenly Ottawa's defensive corps looks like a completely different unit than the patchwork group that was scrambling to survive just 2 weeks ago. The offensive firepower up front isn't slowing down either. Tim Stützle has been an absolute force this season, leading the Senators with around 32 goals and 40 assists for 72 points, and Captain Brady Tkachuk has chipped in roughly 22 goals and 36 assists of his own. Drake Batherson is sitting at a career-high 68 points and has been deadly on the power play, while the addition of Warren Foegele at the trade deadline gave this bottom six some much-needed bite and energy. This is a deep, motivated roster that's playing its best hockey when it matters most. New Jersey does still have Jack Hughes, and let's be real, you can never fully dismiss a lineup with that kind of talent. Hughes has been scorching hot lately with 10 points in his last 5 games and 73 points on the season, and Jesper Bratt has been quietly excellent all year with 20 goals and 48 assists. But without Luke Hughes quarterbacking the power play and the top pair from the back end, without Markstrom between the pipes, and without several other key contributors, this roster is a shell of what it could be. The Devils will likely turn to Jake Allen in net, who has actually posted a respectable 2.74 goals against average and a .904 save percentage, but he's being asked to carry a team that simply doesn't have enough around him right now. The motivation gap in this game is enormous. One team is fighting for its playoff life and riding a wave of confidence, while the other is counting down the days until the offseason and actively resting players for next year. There's also the matter of Ottawa playing the second half of a back-to-back after last night's game in New York, and sure, that's a legitimate concern. This Senators team has shown an ability to respond in those spots all season long, though, and when you factor in how depleted the Devils are, the fatigue factor gets offset considerably. As our first pick for this matchup, the Ottawa Senators money line is our full game side pick. The natural instinct when you see Ottawa's recent offensive explosion might be to think this game is going to be a track meet, and honestly, that's a fair initial reaction. 20 goals in 4 games is eye-popping, no question about it. But take a step back and look at the full picture of what's actually happening tonight. Ottawa is on the second night of a back-to-back. That matters. It doesn't mean they're going to come out flat, but it does mean their legs won't be as fresh, their breakouts might be a tick slower, and their overall tempo could dip compared to what we've seen over this winning streak. Even the most well-conditioned athletes in the world feel the effects of playing 2 games in 2 nights, especially this late in a grueling 82-game regular season where they've been grinding through injuries for weeks. Coach Travis Green is smart enough to manage his roster's energy with the playoffs right around the corner and pushing his top guys to their absolute limit in a road back-to-back against an eliminated team doesn't make a whole lot of sense. New Jersey ranks 26th in the entire league in goals scored this season with just 215. That number tells you everything. This is not a high-powered offense even when healthy, and right now they're far from healthy. Without Luke Hughes generating offense from the blue line and without several key forwards in the lineup, the Devils' ability to create sustained pressure and capitalize on chances is significantly diminished. Jack Hughes and Jesper Bratt can do damage individually, but they're being asked to carry an enormous load with a thinned-out supporting cast, and that's a tough ask against a team that just got 2 elite defensemen back in Chabot and Sanderson. Ottawa's blue line looks completely different now than it did even a week ago. Sanderson leads the team in ice time per game and has been a shutdown presence since his return, while Chabot brings veteran poise and puck-moving ability that tightens up everything from the neutral zone through the defensive zone. The Senators allowed just 2 goals to the Lightning, 1 to the Panthers, and 0 to the Islanders in their last 3 games. That's 3 goals allowed in 3 contests. The defensive structure under Travis Green has clicked into place at just the right time, and tonight they're facing an offense that simply doesn't have the personnel to test them consistently. Jake Allen has been the better goaltender in New Jersey all season, posting that .904 save percentage, and he could very well keep things tight by limiting scoring chances. On a back-to-back where the visiting team might not be firing on all cylinders offensively, Allen's steady presence in net could keep the puck out just enough to drag this game into a tighter, more defensive affair. On Ottawa's end, whether it's Linus Ullmark getting the nod again or the Senators turn to their backup after last night's shutout, the expectation is solid goaltending from a group that's been locked in defensively. The Devils don't really have a reason to push the pace tonight. They're eliminated. There's no urgency to take risks, no need to open up the game and chase the play. That often translates to a more conservative, structured approach, especially from a coaching staff that knows their roster is banged up and doesn't want to risk further injuries in a game that means nothing in the standings. When one team is protecting energy for the postseason and the other team has nothing to play for, you tend to see a more controlled, lower-event hockey game. Late-season fatigue, the roster limitations on New Jersey's side, Ottawa's tightened-up defensive structure with Chabot and Sanderson back, and the natural rhythm of a back-to-back game, all of these pieces point toward a contest that stays relatively contained. This isn't going to be the kind of high-flying, up-and-down affair we've seen over the last week. Both teams have reason to keep things tight and close to the vest tonight. As our second pick for this matchup, under the projected total is our full-game total pick. Utah Mammoth versus Calgary Flames. There's a lot to love about tonight's matchup between the Utah Mammoth and the Calgary Flames at the Scotiabank Saddle Dome. And honestly, the more you peel back the layers on this game, the more the picture becomes crystal clear for one side. Let's start with the obvious. These two teams are living in completely different realities right now. Utah has already punched their ticket to the postseason, clinching a wild card spot in a brutal Western Conference, and they're sitting 4th in the Central Division with a record of roughly 41-30-6 on the year. Calgary, on the other hand, has been eliminated from playoff contention with a record of about 32-36-9, sitting 7th in the Pacific and 14th in the conference. That gap in motivation alone should tell you a story. But here's the thing, it goes way deeper than just standings. The Flames were completely gutted at the trade deadline in early March, losing 3 foundational pieces in rapid succession. Mackenzie Weegar, their physical, minute-eating top defenseman and alternate captain, was shipped to Utah on March 4th. Just 2 days later, Nazem Kadri, their veteran center and emotional leader, was dealt to the Colorado Avalanche. And before all that, Rasmus Andersson was sent packing to the Vegas Golden Knights in exchange for Zach Whitecloud. That's 3 pillars of a team gone in the span of a few days. The Flames waved the white flag on this season, and they have been in freefall ever since, currently holding some of the best lottery odds for a top draft pick. Now compare that to what Utah has been doing over the same stretch. Since acquiring Weegar, the Mammoth have looked like a completely different team on the back end. They were already one of the stingiest defensive groups in the NHL before the trade, allowing the 5th fewest goals per game at 2.77, and Weegar just poured gasoline on that fire. The man averaged over 23 minutes a night in Calgary and stepped right into Utah's top pairing with Sean Durzi, instantly adding grit, structure, and veteran savvy. And tonight, Weegar returns to the Scotiabank Saddledome for the first time since the trade. You just know that's going to light a fire under him. Former teammates, former fans, a building he called home. That kind of emotional fuel can't be underestimated. And the Mammoth's offensive engine has been humming lately too. Clayton Keller, their alternate captain and best player, has been phenomenal this season with over 80 points and a plus 22 rating through 77 games. Nick Schmaltz has quietly put together a career-best campaign, reaching 30 goals and 70 points for the first time in his career. Dylan Guenther has been lethal with 38 goals on the year and was riding a 5-game point streak heading into last night. Logan Cooley missed 28 games earlier in the season with a lower body injury, but since returning he's been on an absolute tear, racking up 5 goals and 3 assists in just 4 games. JJ Peterka, the former Sabre they acquired in the offseason, has chipped in 24 goals and 45 points from a middle 6 role. This is a deep, balanced attack that can score in bunches. Calgary's forward group, by contrast, has been patchworked together after the deadline sell-off. Morgan Frost and Joel Farabee, both acquired from Philadelphia before the season, have been asked to carry way too much of the offensive burden. Matt Coronado remains their most promising young scorer, but the supporting cast around him has thinned out considerably. Ryan Strome was added from Anaheim at the deadline and has struggled to find his footing, producing just 9 points in 33 games before the trade. The Flames rank dead last in the league in goals per game, and their power play sits at 31st in the NHL. That's not exactly a recipe for success against a playoff-caliber defensive team. In net, Dustin Wolf has had a tough sophomore campaign for Calgary. After a strong Calder Trophy-caliber rookie season, Wolf has regressed to a 3.09 goals against average and an .895 save percentage in 54 appearances this year. He allowed 10 goals on just 50 shots over his last 2 outings heading into tonight's game. Karl Vejmelka, on the other side, has been Utah's rock all season, posting a .917 save percentage earlier in the year and consistently keeping the Mammoth in games. Both teams are playing their second game in 2 nights. Utah lost 1-4 to a powerhouse Carolina Hurricanes team that leads the Eastern Conference, and Calgary lost 1-4 in Seattle. So fatigue is a factor for both, which theoretically levels things out. But here's where I keep circling back. A team that's clinched a playoff spot and is fighting for seeding is going to dig deeper on a back-to-back than a team that's been eliminated and is essentially playing out the string for lottery positioning. That competitive DNA matters, and Andre Tourigny's group has shown it time and again, winning 4 straight games before last night's loss, including impressive victories of 6-2 over Seattle, 7-4 over Vancouver, 6-5 in overtime over Edmonton, and 4-1 over Nashville. The head-to-head this season is split 1-1, with Utah winning 3-1 at home on October 15th and Calgary winning 2-0 at the Saddledome on December 6th. But that December game feels like a lifetime ago. That was before Weegar, before Kadri, before Andersson, before the entire identity of the Calgary Flames changed. The team Utah beat in October is closer to what they'll see tonight than the team that beat them in December, except this version of Calgary is somehow even worse because of the players they've lost since. Utah's win probability sits near 59% for this game, and honestly, that might even be conservative given everything we've discussed. As our first pick for this matchup, the Utah Mammoth on the money line as favorites is our full game side pick. Now let's talk about how much rubber is likely to find the back of the net in this one, because there are some fascinating trends working in a particular direction. The first thing that jumps off the page is what happens when the Utah Mammoth play teams with losing records. In their last 8 games against sub.500 opponents, the over has cashed 6 times against just 2 unders. In their last 7 games as favorites overall, the over is 6-1. Those aren't just numbers on a page, those are flashing neon signs. And when you look at Utah's recent offensive output, it makes perfect sense. Over their last 5 games before tonight, the Mammoth scored 6, 7, 6, and 4 goals in 4 of them. That's an average north of 5 goals per game from Utah alone. This team has been absolutely pouring it on, and with guys like Keller, Guenther, Schmaltz, Cooley, and Peterka all feeling it right now, the offensive faucet doesn't look like it's turning off anytime soon. The Mammoth's power play has improved since adding Weegar's shot from the point, giving them yet another weapon to generate extra offense. On Calgary's side, you might think a struggling team means fewer goals, but it's the opposite. The Flames have been a sieve defensively, giving up 9 goals to Colorado, 6 to Vegas, and 4 to Dallas and Seattle in recent outings. Their blue line has been decimated by trades and injuries. Kevin Ball, who averaged nearly 22 minutes per game, is hurt with a lower body issue. Joel Hanley is out for the season. Jake Bean needed surgery and has been out indefinitely. Jonathan Huberdeau is done for the year after hip surgery. The Flames are rolling out a patchwork defensive group featuring young players like Zane Parekh and Hunter Brzustewicz, who are talented but still learning at this level. And while that's great for their development, it's a recipe for goals against in the short term. Both teams are on back-to-backs, and historically, back-to-backs tend to produce more goals because tired legs lead to breakdowns, turnovers, and slower defensive reactions. Goalies on the second night of a back-to-back tend to track pucks less cleanly, and both netminders are going to be pushed hard tonight. If Wolf is in net after that rough outing in Seattle, he's been hemorrhaging goals over his last few starts, allowing 10 on 50 shots across his 2 most recent appearances. Here's something else worth considering. When these 2 teams met earlier in the season, those games produced scorelines of 3-1 and 2-0. But that was with a different Calgary roster, one that still had Weegar clogging lanes, Kadri providing responsible two-way play, and Anderson eating up minutes on the back end. All 3 of those guys are gone now. The defensive infrastructure that kept those earlier meetings tighter has been stripped for parts. The Flames simply don't have the personnel to bottle up Utah's attack the way they did in December. Everything points in the same direction here, from Utah's explosive offense to Calgary's depleted defense to the trends that show overs hitting at a ridiculous clip in similar situations. As our second pick for this matchup, over the projected total is our full game total pick. That's all for now, so if you have any other games you would like reviewed, then leave a comment down below with the game you would like analyzed, subscribe to our channel, leave a like on this video, and we'll get to it as soon as we possibly can. We would also love to hear your opinion on the picks presented to you in this video, whether you agree or disagree with them, so leave a comment down below and do let us know.